The rain started around 11 p.m., a steady, miserable drumming that turned the asphalt of Route 9 into a black mirror. I was 23, broke, and working the graveyard shift at O'Connell's, a diner that seemed to exist solely to serve truckers who had lost their way and locals who couldn't sleep. It was a relic, chrome counter, red vinyl stools that cracked under pressure, and a smell permanently embedded in the walls, stale coffee, bacon grease, and a hint of lemon bleach. Usually, the hours between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. were dead silent, except for the hum of the pie fridge, but tonight was different. The rain seemed to have washed something in. At 1:15 a.m., the bell above the door jingled weakly. A man walked in. He was impossibly tall, wearing a yellow raincoat that looked slick and heavy, like it had been dipped in oil. He didn't shake it off. He just walked to the booth furthest from the door, the one near the emergency exit that always had a draft. He sat down, facing the window, staring out into the pitch-black parking lot. I grabbed a menu and a water glass. "Evening," I said, approaching the booth. "Coffee to start?" He didn't turn his head. He just nodded. A jerky, mechanical motion. When I brought the coffee, I got my first good look at him. He hadn't lowered his hood. His face was entirely in shadow, but I could see his hands resting on the Formica tabletop. They were pale, not just indoor pale, but the color of uncooked chicken skin. His fingers were too long, the knuckles swollen like arthritic knobs. "Did you want to order any food?" I asked, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. The air around his booth felt 10 degrees cooler than the rest of the diner. He spoke then. His voice sounded wet, like stones grinding underwater. "Eggs, runny, toast, burnt." I retreated to the kitchen. My cook, an ancient, cynical man named Sal, was scraping the grill. "Weird guy in booth 6, I muttered, clipping the order ticket up. Sal grunted. "Long as he pays, I don't care if he's Dracula. Eggs runny, toast burnt, got it." I watched Sal cook. It felt safer back there under the heat lamps. When the plate was ready, I walked it back out. The diner was dead quiet. The jukebox hadn't played in years, but I suddenly wished it would start up just to break the silence. I slid the plate onto the table. The man in the yellow raincoat hadn't moved. He hadn't touched his coffee. "Anything else?" I asked. No response. I went back behind the counter and prepared to wipe down the milkshake machine. I watched him in the reflection of the pie case glass. He didn't pick up the fork. He placed his hands flat on either side of the plate, and then, slowly, he lowered his hooded head toward the food. He didn't eat. He inhaled. It was a deep, rattling sound, like a vacuum trying to suck up water. He did this for a full minute. Then, he sat bolt upright again. The eggs on the plate were now gray and shriveled. The toast looked like pieces of charcoal. It looked as if the meal had sat out for a week, rotting in seconds. A cold sweat broke across my forehead. I wanted him to leave. I wanted to lock the door and turn off the lights. At 2 a.m., the door jingled again. Another customer. An older woman this time. She wore a faded floral dress that was too thin for the weather, and she carried a large, empty birdcage. She walked with a strange, gliding gait, as if her feet weren't quite touching the floor. She didn't sit at the counter. She sat in the booth directly opposite the man in the raincoat. She placed the large, empty birdcage in the center of the table between them. She looked at me with eyes that were entirely milky white, devoid of pupils. "Tea," she whispered. Her voice was like dry leaves, skittering on pavement. "Hot water. Nothing else." I brought her a cup of hot water. My hands were shaking so badly some of it sloshed onto the saucer. She didn't drink it. She just stared at the birdcage. The atmosphere in the diner became suffocating. The air grew thick, heavy with the smell of ozone, the smell before a massive lightning strike. The man in the yellow raincoat slowly turned his head from the window to look at the woman. "Is it time?" the man asked. His wet, grinding voice seemed louder now, filling the room without echoing. The woman nodded slowly. "The vessel is prepared." She reached a skeletal hand into the birdcage and opened the small wire door. Nothing came out, but the air pressure in the room dropped so suddenly my ears popped. The lights flickered, buzzing angrily. Sal came out of the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. "Hey, what's with the lights? You blow a fuse?" He stopped. He looked at the two patrons. Sal, a man who had claimed to have fought in 3 different wars and feared nothing, turned chalk white. He didn't say a word. He just backed slowly into the kitchen, and I heard the heavy metal bolt of the back door slide shut. He had left me. "The crossing is open," the woman whispered. She looked up from the cage and stared directly at me. Those milky eyes seemed to see right through my skin to the bone. "We require a toll," the man in the raincoat said. He stood up. He was even taller than I thought. His head nearly brushed the ceiling tiles. I couldn't move. I was frozen behind the counter, clutching a dirty dish rag like a lifeline. "A memory," the woman said. "A happy one. Give it to us, and you may remain." I didn't understand. I tried to speak, but my throat was closed tight. The man began walking toward the counter. He moved with that same jerky motion, like stop-motion animation gone wrong. He reached the counter. I could see beneath the hood now. There was no face, just a smooth expanse of gray, damp flesh where features should have been. "A memory," the voice demanded, vibrating in my own chest. I closed my eyes tight. I tried to think of something. Anything. My 7th birthday party. The day I got my first car. They felt slippery in my mind, like trying to hold water in cupped hands. The presence leaned closer across the counter. The smell of rain and rot was overwhelming. Think. A memory surfaced. A summer afternoon at the lake with my grandfather, teaching me how to skip stones. The sun was warm, the water was cool, and I felt completely safe. "Take it," I mentally screamed. "Just take it and go." I felt a sharp, freezing pain in the center of my forehead, like an ice pick being driven in. It lasted only a second. When I opened my eyes, the man was gone from the counter. He was back in the booth, sitting across from the woman. The birdcage door was closed. The woman stood up, picked up the cage, and walked to the door. The man followed close behind. As they passed me, the woman paused. "It was a good one," she whispered. "Warm." The bell jingled. The door closed. They were gone. I looked out the window into the rainy parking lot. It was empty. There were no tire tracks, no footprints in the puddles. I looked over at booth 6. The plate with the rotted eggs and charcoal toast was still there. I walked over to clean it up. My legs felt like jelly. As I reached for the plate, I stopped. I tried to remember what I had given them. I knew I had given them a memory to make them leave. But when I reached back into my mind, trying to recall the day at the lake with my grandfather, there was nothing there. Just a gray fog. A gap where something precious used to be. I cleaned the table. The shift ended. I went home. But I don't sleep much at night anymore. I'm afraid of what else might wander in out of the rain, and what else they might decide to take.